Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores
normally
have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream Sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in. Glad to have you join me today. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. The U.S. House of Representatives made their way back to Capitol Hill. They're expected to take their first vote this afternoon to start the process of reopening the government. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court yesterday agreed to extend its temporary stay of a lower court order that the Trump administration immediately pay the full Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, the SNAP program, benefits for the month of November, with the idea that Congress is getting closer to opening federal agencies back up. We have those details as well. A protester named Jihad has been charged with assault and robbery after a brawl at a UC Berkeley, California campus event of Turning Point USA. Protesters showed up in opposition, saying there shouldn't be any hate speech on campus. So their response to attack the attendees. Wow. Housing affordability remains so strained that the Trump administration is working on a plan to introduce a 50-year mortgage option for home buyers. Financial experts are weighing in on whether this is a blessing or a curse. We'll dig into that as well.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills, but I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
One story that hit straight at the heart of the ongoing governmental shutdown battle, the Supreme Court stepping in yet again, this time handing President Trump a short-term but significant victory. In a late-night decision, the Supreme Court agreed to extend a temporary stay on a lower court ruling that had ordered the Trump administration to immediately pay out full SNAP benefits for the month of November. Now, keep in mind, there's no funding there. They were going to have to pull this from reserves, but the lower courts were saying, you got to do this. That means for now, the administration will not have to resume those full payments, buying a little more time while Congress inches closer to finalizing a funding bill to reopen the government and to get things going again. And again, the House is expected to vote as soon as this afternoon. It's a procedural move, but one with enormous real-world consequences for tens of millions of Americans and even bigger implications for the constitutional tug-of-war between the executive branch and the judiciary. So let's start with the facts, where we are, how we got here. The High Court's order, handed down just hours after President Trump's legal team filed for emergency intervention, keeps Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's temporary stay in place through midnight, Thursday, November the 13th, this Thursday. Now, in plain English, that means the government doesn't have to pay out full SNAP benefits for now, only partial payments as they were doing, about 65% of what recipients normally receive. It will continue until Congress passes the spending bill that's now sitting before the House of Representatives. The Trump administration's argument is very simple here. Courts don't get to decide how to spend money that Congress hasn't appropriated. In other words, the courts just want the federal government to, out of thin air, make up some money, I guess. The Solicitor General, John Sawyer, told the justices that lower courts had overstepped their powers and that judges were effectively trying to reallocate resources without lawful authority. In other words, when a court's trying to force the administration to pull funds out of a reserve fund, They don't have that authority. Congress is the only part of the federal government that can appropriate funds, not judges. So the administration said, we're not the problem. Congress is. The only way to fix this, they argued, is to end the shutdown, not for judges to start playing Treasury Secretary. And the Supreme Court, at least for now, agrees. This all started when several states sued the administration last month, demanding that the USDA continue issuing full SNAP payments despite the shutdown. Their argument? Millions of low-income families were facing irreparable harm as the shutdown dragged into November, with benefits delayed or slashed for the first time since the program was created. Nobody can argue with that. Nobody can argue with the fact that it has made life difficult for a lot of people. Now, a lower court sided with the states, ordering the federal government to resume full benefits immediately. But the administration pushed back very hard and appealed to the Supreme Court. Then over the weekend, the USDA issued a directive telling states to immediately undo any steps taken to issue full SNAP benefits and instead go back to partial payments, to 65% payments, until funding is restored. That, of course, as you can imagine, led to legal whiplash. Judges in Massachusetts and the District of Columbia issued conflicting orders. States were caught in the middle. And the result was a bureaucratic tug of war that's left grocery stores, EBT processors, and millions of families wondering what, if anything, they'll receive this month. Now, the states, primarily led by Democrat attorneys general in places like New Jersey, New York, and California, are furious. They told the Supreme Court this morning that any further delay would prolong irreparable harm and add to the chaos that's already been unleashed by the Trump administration, they claim. New Jersey's Attorney General, Matt Platkin, went as far as calling the USDA's action the most heinous thing I have ever seen, he said. He said, there are more children in New Jersey on SNAP than the entire population of our state's largest city. Well, again, I'm sorry for them. I'm sorry for these children. But you can't just snap your fingers and create funding that's not there. and that's the big argument here. Judges can't do that. Judges cannot take on the role of issuing funds, to mandating agencies spend money they don't have. Congress appropriates funds, period. Now, the state's outrage ignores that basic truth, that the federal courts can't order the Treasury to spend money that Congress hasn't appropriated. These lower federal judges, they have just gotten so out of hand over these past few years, thinking that they are little dictators. I mean, we've seen it time and time again, just in this less than a year of Trump 2.0, where these federal judges think that they're gods and they can do anything they want. And as the Trump administration keeps pointing out, Congress holds the purse strings, not the courts, not the USDA, and not activist attorneys generals from these states trying to score political points in front of cameras. That's what it amounts to. This is where the case gets really interesting as far as the Constitution and why the Supreme Court's decision could have lasting consequences even beyond this shutdown. The question before the judges isn't about food aid. It's about the limits of executive power and judicial power. Can a federal court order the executive branch to spend money it doesn't have? The Trump team says absolutely not. They're warning that if lower courts can do that, the entire separation of powers collapses. In their filing, they said this lower court order makes a mockery of the separation of powers, and they're right. It does make a mockery. Again, you got these little federal judges thinking they can do anything. Frankly, they have a point. If Congress fails to act, as it has for, 42 days now, that's a political problem. It's not something judges can fix, though, by writing new checks from the bench. They just don't have that authority. This case, in a lot of ways, is about the proper balance of power, about whether we're still a nation of laws and limits, or whether every political crisis becomes an excuse for judicial activism. Now, let's be clear. The human impact here is real. Over 40 million Americans rely on SNAP benefits. I question that number, whether that's a correct number, but right now that's the number. And that's part of what the Trump administration has to do. Should we have 40 million people on SNAP benefits? Of the 40 million, how many really qualify? Many of them, according to data, are single parents, veterans, or people between jobs. But the administration's point and President Trump's message is that the real solution isn't in the courtroom, it's in the Capitol building. But the Democrats have to get back in and get this passed. And that's, again, what we're hopeful that we're going to see this afternoon when the U.S. House goes back into session and begins their process of ending the chaos. Congress created the shutdown when Democrats decided to block funding unless Republicans agreed to extend Obamacare. And guess what? Congress can alleviate the problem, too, by voting this afternoon, the U.S. House of Representatives, in their first step to reopen the government. It's just that simple. We don't need these lower courts telling the federal government what to do. Let's be honest, those summer vacations and backyard barbecues added some extra pounds, right? But instead of feeling guilty or falling further behind, it's time to reset, drop the weight, and get back in control. The solution isn't a shot. Real lasting weight loss starts with your mind, not your mouth. At PhD Weight Loss, Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team help you uncover the real reasons behind your weight gain so that you can reprogram the way you think about food forever. PhD clients lose up to a third of their body weight without ever taking a drug. I know because I lost 33 pounds with PhD weight loss. Through real food, behavioral coaching, and proven science, your body can become a natural fat-burning machine. Why risk spending thousands on shots that strip away muscle, come with dangerous side effects, and leave most people regaining 60% of the weight within a year? With PhD, you'll activate your body's natural appetite control, burn fat safely, and stay in control. Even if you're already on Ozempic, PhD can help you transition off while still losing weight. Take the first step today. Call 864-644-1900 or visit myphdweightloss.com. There's another unbelievable story out of California, and this one, it's exactly the kind of chaos that's become far too common on America's college campuses. The story is at UC Berkeley, where this week a protest against Turning Point USA, of course, the organization founded by the late Charlie Kirk, when violence erupted. One protester is identified as 25-year-old Jihad Defrapoulis. I don't know what kind of name that is. Jihad, we do know what is. He was arrested and charged with assault and robbery after police say he ripped a chain necklace from the neck of a TPUSA supporter during the chaos. That single act sparked a bloody brawl that was caught on camera. Both men left covered in blood as police scrambled to restore order while Antifa-aligned demonstrators tried to storm the event during the process. Now, this all happened on Monday night. It was a sold-out Turning Point USA campus event. Hundreds of conservative students had shown up to honor the legacy of Charlie Kirk and to keep his message of free speech alive. But outside, the usual mob of black-clad agitators gathered, waving Palestinian flags and chanting, "No hate on campus." You see the irony here? They're out there parading around, no hate on campus, but yet they're the ones who start a fight, who start violence. Video from Fox 2 News, their local Fox affiliate, shows Jihad snatching something from the neck of a man wearing a red T-shirt that read "Freedom." The victim immediately chased him down, and the two went to the ground as punches flew. Within seconds, you can see in the video, blood's everywhere. Officers jumped in to separate them. That's what happened. Police say it was clear who started it. Jihad. The suspect had stolen the man's chain. The victim, who was initially detained, was released once officers reviewed the footage. Jihad, meanwhile, was booked for robbery and assault. So let's just look at this, and let's be honest here. This is becoming, sadly, the norm on our college campuses. Anytime a conservative group like Turning Point USA tries to hold a lawful event, far-left radicals show up not to debate, not to discuss, but to silence these groups. They call themselves anti-fascists, but their tactics look a whole lot like fascism, doesn't it? These are the same types who set fires outside of lectures by Ben Shapiro, who tear down posters advertising pro-Israel speakers, who drown out discussions with bullhorns and profanity. And this week's chaos at Berkeley in California, ironically the birthplace of free speech movement, of that very movement, shows just how far the left has drifted from its very own ideals. Turning Point's Chief of Staff Mikey McCoy wrote on X, Antifa is breaking through police barricades and threatening our event attendees. TPUSA spokesperson Andrew Colvett said afterwards, despite Antifa thugs blocking our campus tour stop with tear gas, fireworks, and glass bottles, we had a packed house in the heart of a deep blue UC Berkeley. That kind of tells you everything, doesn't it? Conservative voices are not backing down. These young people are hungry for this message, and they're not going to let some Antifa protesters keep them from attending these events. To their credit, Berkeley police moved fast. They separated the fighters, detained multiple people, and confirmed the assault and battery charges against Jihad. But it's hard not to wonder, where was the university leadership? Where were the administrators who were supposed to ensure that all students can speak freely and safely? Too often, college administrators just wring their hands and issue statements about inclusion, but when the mobs show up, they retreat. That inclusion evidently doesn't include conservative groups, conservative voices like TPUSA. The message to conservative students couldn't be clearer. If you dare to speak up, you better be ready for a fight. That's not democracy. That's not freedom of speech. That's trying to intimidate a group of people. But again, you look at the crowd that was at the event, they didn't back down. They didn't let these thugs intimidate them, and they didn't turn around and go back to their dorms, which was an option. They showed up. They went to the event. And remember, this protest came exactly 2 months after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. This symbol of the modern conservative youth movement. I mean, he started it. And boy, are they still going strong in his memory. His murder shocked millions. His message of standing up for freedom has only grown stronger since his assassination, as it should. So for Antifa-style agitators to show up at a TPUSA event 2 months to the day of his death, throwing bottles and tear gas and attacking attendees, that's not protest. That's provocation. That's unacceptable. That's an attempt to erase what Charlie Kirk stood for: open dialogue, patriotism, and courage in the face of mob pressure. Stand up and be heard. Don't let these thugs intimidate you. Now imagine the same scene flipped. We know what that would look like, don't we? If a right-wing protester named Jihad had ripped a necklace off of a liberal activist at a progressive rally, the story would dominate every newscast for a week. CNN panels will be demanding congressional hearings. Have you heard any of that? Did you even see this story on CNN? Nope, I'll answer that for you. But because the violence came from the left and because it targeted conservatives, you'll barely see outside a few outlets this even being covered. Of course, we're going to cover it here because that's what we do. But that's the media's double standard in action, and it's why trust in journalism is at an all-time low. This story just isn't about one violent protester. It's about what's happening in a culture that now treats conservative thought as dangerous and dissent as hate speech. And that's what we have to turn around, folks. We can't allow this to happen. Universities used to be places of learning. Now too many have become breeding grounds for mob rule. If you're a parent sending your child off to college, you should be asking, will my son or daughter be safe if they express a conservative view? At UC Berkeley, one man named Jihad decided to steal a necklace. But what's really being stolen on our campuses is the spirit of free expression. But I think TPUSA is determined to keep that free expression alive. Turning Point USA was founded to empower young Americans to speak up. Monday night, despite the tear gas, despite the fireworks and the violence, they still filled that hall to capacity, and that's a good thing. Hey, folks, if you needed more proof that Washington Democrats are literally turning on themselves. They're eating their own. Just look at what happened over the weekend and who's calling them out. When the Washington Post's editorial board, the Washington Post that we all are very familiar with, when they're praising Democrats who defied Chuck Schumer and broke rank to vote with Republicans, you know the party, the Democrat Party, has a problem. Here's the story. Sunday night, as you know, 8 Democrats in the Senate joined Republicans to pass a House continuing resolution, a stopgap bill to reopen the government and end the longest shutdown in our history, a shutdown that we have talked about week after week after week. I'm tired of talking about it. I want the government to reopen so you and I can go on to another topic. The final vote was 60-40, just enough to get it done. Now, you'd think Democrats would be celebrating that the paychecks are going to be flowing again soon, that SNAP benefits are going to be flowing again soon, that our government's going to be open, that air traffic controllers are going to be paid, that our troops, all federal workers, are going to get their checks. But no, instead, the left is in a full meltdown mode. According to the Post, the far left flank of the Democrat Party is furious, calling the deal a capitulation, pathetic, and even a political disaster. Senator Bernie Sanders called it a policy and political disaster. Progressive Caucus Chair Greg Kasar called it capitulation. California Governor Gavin Newsom, who's apparently trying to be the conscience of the left, said it was pathetic. As if we care what Gavin Newsom says. Here's what the Post wrote. And I want you to hear this because it's stunning coming from them. And I read, the party that takes the government hostage to advance its policy goals almost never succeeds. Let me read that again. The party, i.e. the Democrats, that takes the government hostage to advance its policy goals almost never succeeds, according to the Washington Post. This is the same paper that cheered on Democrats for years, saying that their shutdown stunt was doomed from the start. They even compared it to 2013 when Republicans tried to use a shutdown to stop Obamacare, and it blew up in their faces. Nobody learned from that. Their point, the same thing is happening to the Democrats. They let angry activists push them into a corner, and now they're suffering the same inevitable failure. You know, when the Washington Post starts talking like the Wall Street Journal, something's changing in the political winds. Because here's what's really going on here, folks. The Democrats thought they could use this shutdown to strong-arm Republicans, to strong-arm them into extending those COVID-era Obama subsidies that we could not afford to pay then, and we certainly can't continue to afford to pay. More taxpayer funding for government health care that should have ended years ago. But Americans weren't buying it. People saw through the political theater. They saw air traffic controllers missing paychecks and affecting their vacation plans. They affecting grandma's visits. They saw the military about to go unpaid. They saw food benefits drying up for people who really needed them. And they asked the obvious question, what exactly are Democrats fighting for? What's the end game here? What are they doing? The Post called it a false outrage. Fake anger designed to please Twitter activists. Now, let's give credit where it's due here. 8 Democrat senators finally said enough is enough. They came to their senses. They put the country ahead of the party. Dick Durbin, Maggie Hassan, Tim Kaine, Jeanne Shaheen, Jackie Rosen, Catherine Cortez Masto, John Fetterman, and Angus King, the independent from Maine, who caucuses with the Democrats. And let's be clear. The Post didn't just praise them. They practically scolded their colleagues for not joining them. They wrote, and I'll read again, these 8 are taking heat from their party's progressive wing so that their colleagues don't have to. Notably, none of them are up for re-election next year. So in other words, they had the courage to do what others were afraid to do, vote to end the suffering, and even if it meant angering the left-wing activists who run their party now, who've taken over the Democrat Party. Meanwhile, who didn't vote to reopen the government? We all know that answer, don't we? Chuck Schumer. The Post editorial board even called him out by name, saying the price of being in leadership is taking tough votes. But Senator Schumer, petrified of a 2028 primary challenge, left other members to face the wrath of the party's base. That's pretty bad, coming from the source. They basically accuse Schumer of political cowardice, of letting others take the hits while he hides from the activists who might challenge him. They're right, because this wasn't about policy. This was about politics, and Schumer didn't have the backbone to lead. He wimped out because he's afraid AOC is going to primary him, and he can't stand the thought of losing his power. So if he blows up the country, so be it. No, nothing off of him. Chuck Schumer's a wealthy man. He hasn't missed any meals. He hasn't missed any trips back home. It hasn't even affected Chuck Schumer. Now, what's really ironic is how Democrats spent years calling Republicans obstructionists, accusing the Republicans of hostage-taking during shutdowns under Obama and Biden. Remember that? Now, they're the ones doing it. They shut down the government, trying to squeeze out a few more months of Obamacare subsidies. It backfired. It backfired politically. It backfired morally. Because Americans don't want performance politics. They want results. They don't want their lives turned upside down. They just want to go to work, pay their bills, and take care of their family. They want leaders who will keep the lights on, keep the troops paid, stop using ordinary workers as bargaining chips. You know, President Ronald Reagan once said, you can be for big government, big taxes, and big bureaucracy, and still be for the little guy. You know, Reagan it's no wonder he was known as the great communicator. He had a way with words like that. That quote fits perfectly here in our current situation. Because Democrats can't claim to care about the little guy while holding up paychecks for Border Patrol agents, for soldiers and federal workers, all to protect government handouts that should have expired long ago, that are literally bankrupting our country to begin with. The truth is, this shutdown hurt the very people Democrats say that they're protecting, say that they're working to champion. And now they're angry that a handful of their own senators had the integrity, the gall, to do the right thing for the American people, for the people they serve. So here's where we are today. I expect the House will vote this afternoon as expected. The only reason it may not would be if some of the members haven't been able to make it back to Washington, D.C. And that's been a challenge in itself. Members of Congress are seeing firsthand for themselves some of the chaos their shutdown has caused in air travel. So let's assume that they do vote this afternoon. There'll be some other votes after that. And then the government will start reopening. The bill funds the military, agriculture, and legislative branch through next September, and the rest of the government through January 30th. That gives Congress about 80 days before they're right back here again at the same place, the same question coming up. And as the Post put it, will members learn their lesson, or will this happen again in 80 days? You tell me. Text me. Email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Always use promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com to take advantage of all the great deals that Mike Lindell has. And look, we're headed into the holidays. Time to start buying Christmas presents. And the 6-piece towel set would be a great gift. Normally $69.98. When you use promo code Joey, you're going to get it for $39.98. So go to MyPillow.com and use promo code Joey. So today, credit goes to those 8 Democrats who broke rank, and to the Washington Post, surprisingly, for calling it like it is. Because the truth is, America is tired of government shutdown theater. We need grown-ups in the room, leaders who can debate policy without turning the lights off on the American people. We need for Congress to get back to work serving those whom have elected them. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. Faye writes on the text line, Joey, there's lots of talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, and to me, she's gone from a type A personality to almost being fake. If one can change personality so suddenly, I always thought that person was bipolar. Not sure she has presidential qualities, if rumors are right. Brian Glenn seems too level-headed to be paired with her. Just my take. Hope to see you in Greenwood Friday. Thank you, Faye. Hey, and I'm glad to hear you're going to be headed over to Greenwood Friday to McCravey Law. It's a big milestone, and I want to tell you about my friend John McCravey. You hear me talking to Representative McCravey a lot. He is a champion in the South Carolina State House of Representatives. But we're helping him celebrate this week the one of the upstate's most respected law firms, his law firm, McCravey, Newland, Sturkey, and Clardy, celebrating 30 years of serving clients, and they're marking the occasion with a community celebration in Greenwood. So I hope you'll come over Friday. Plan to join us. Yours truly will be there. I'll be doing some cut-ins with Bill Frady during his show. We're going to kick things off at 11:30 and to 2 o'clock. Fat Daddy's food truck will be on site as well. And when Fat Daddy's food truck is there, there's going to be some good eating going on. The event's open to the public, so I hope you'll come see us. Grab a bite, meet the team, help them celebrate 3 decades of helping people right here in the upstate. It's easy to find. It's on the bypassing Greenwood between Zaxby's and Applebee's. So just put Zaxby's or Applebee's one in your GPS and come around the bypass, and the law office of McCravey, Newland, Sturkey, and Clardy will be right there. Come by, say hello to Representative John McCravey, John Newland, Jason Sturkey, Timothy Clardy, and again, yours truly. I'll be there. We'll have some good food, and we'll have a good time for sure. Hope to see you there. Let's dig into one of the most talked about economic ideas coming out of the Trump administration. It's got everyone from Wall Street analysts to your local mortgage leaders talking. The 50-year mortgage, a brand new home loan option that could stretch payments out over a half a century. President Trump, Federal Housing Finance Agency Director Bill Pulte says it's a game changer for young Americans struggling to afford a home. Critics, even some within the mortgage industry, are warning it could be a double-edged sword, and I would have to agree with the critics in this case. Now, let's unpack what's really going on here. Housing affordability in this country is at a crisis level. Home prices have jumped nearly 50% in just 5 years. And with 30-year mortgage rates sitting around 6% or so, the average American family can barely qualify for the same house they could have bought a decade ago. So the administration's logic makes sense on paper. If you can make the payment shorter, make the payment longer. Under a 50-year mortgage, buyers could stretch that loan balance out over 2 more decades, dramatically lowering their monthly bill. Bill Pulte, whose grandfather founded Pulte Homes, says the move is about giving young people a fighting chance to own a home. He posted on X, thanks to President Trump, we are indeed working on the 50-year mortgage, a complete game changer. President Trump himself compared the proposal to what Franklin D. Roosevelt did back in 1934 when he introduced the 30-year mortgage as part of the New Deal. That innovation helped millions of Americans recover from the Great Depression. Now President Trump says we're facing a new kind of housing depression, one driven by inflation, regulation, and a lack of supply. Now, here's the good part. That would immediately help families trying to qualify for homes in some of the high-cost areas. You get them in homes very quickly. Like Charleston County here in South Carolina, where the median home price just hit $760,000. For someone borrowing $400,000 at 6% interest, the difference between a 30 and 50-year loan could mean hundreds of dollars in savings every single month. That could open the door for thousands of first-time home buyers who have been locked out of the market. And as Pulte argues, the flexibility is key. If your income rises, you can pay it down faster. But if times get tight, you still have some breathing room there. Mortgage experts are split, though. Jared Hudson, a lender with Cente Mortgage, says most people never actually keep their loans for the full term anyway, whether it's 15, 30, or 50-year mortgage, he said. Most are paid off within 7 years, either through refinancing or selling. That means the real-world difference may be smaller than the headline suggests. Hudson points out that borrowers can always pay extra toward the principal each year. If you can afford more, great, pay it down early, but the longer term gives you protection. He calls a 50-year mortgage just another tool in the toolbox. But Salou isn't convinced. He says the target group for this kind of loan, lower and middle income buyers, are not the people likely to make extra payments. They're the ones living paycheck to paycheck, he said. And that's the crux of it. Is this innovation just kicking the can down the road? I would argue, yes, it is. It's kind of like that credit card payment that you see to the right on your statement. It's always down there. If you pay the minimum, you basically never get it paid off. You never get it paid off. Nationally, the median home price, we're told, is around $415,000. In South Carolina, it's roughly $339,000. The average age of the first-time home buyer now over 40 years old. That's a dramatic shift up from age 33 just a few years ago and 29 in the early 1980s. That means many new homeowners could still be making mortgage payments into their 80s or their 90s. Wow. Now, this proposal is not finalized yet. It's still in development phase inside of the FHFA. But it's clear the administration is thinking big and thinking long term. It's just, again, I don't know if this is really the right thing to do, because according to Bankrate, you could end up paying, for example, on that $400,000 loan at 6%, it would cost you an extra $400,000 in interest over the length of that 50-year loan. You'd be paying as much in interest over the life of that loan as you borrowed. You're never going to get ahead doing that. So here's my question for you today. Do you think the 50-year mortgage is a good idea? Or are we just setting ourselves up or young people up for more failure? Would they not be better off just to continue to rent an apartment that they can afford until things change in their financial situation? Or is this a good thing? Is this sort of the new norm, a 50-year mortgage? President Trump wants to be remembered as the president who gave young Americans their shot at the American dream, just as FDR was remembered for helping families buy homes in the 1930s. Back then, a 30-year mortgage was never heard of. People objected to it then, just like they're saying now, a 50-year mortgage, and not so sure about it. Bill Pulte, he's promising this is only the start, saying that a 50-year mortgage is simply one weapon in a wide arsenal of solutions. That means we could see more tools coming: tax incentives, construction credits, zoning reforms, all aimed at getting Americans back into home ownership. But the frustration out there is real, and it's an all-time high. According to a recent Realtor.com survey, 93% of Americans say home prices are just simply too high. And they're blaming three things: investors buying up homes to flip or to rent out, rising construction costs, and a government that hasn't prioritized affordable housing. Now, that last one, I've never quite understood what government is supposed to do. We're seeing some affordable rentals in areas where the government is heavily subsidizing the developers, But other than that, what can government do to make housing more affordable? Maybe you know. Maybe you can help me with that. Text me. Email me, joey@joeyhudson.com, because I've just never understood the government's role in making homes more affordable without literally just building them and giving them away. And maybe that's what some people expect. I don't know. But I do think that it's unfair to young people not to be able to own the affordable dream. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.